No worries.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a live discussion with Dr. D. I have none other than Pastor Andrew McIntyre with me.
Good to see you guys.
We're super excited to be here with you guys.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited because this is my first Men's Month live. Man, we're kicking it off strong.
Brother holding it down.
Super excited about this live, man, because, you know, for those of you all who've been following me and been watching me, I went really, really hard in March with the women. Like, man, we were out here representing. So today I wanted to kick hey, Colette, that's my sister-in-law. And I wanted to kick off Men's Month, you know, with the same type of energy. Because just like women matter, our men matter, man.
Most definitely.
You know, and so today we're kicking off a series called The Mantle of a Man. Like, just like it's not easy being a woman, it's not easy being a man.
At all.
And so we're talking health, man, marriage, family, all those different things and the hats that men wear. So, Pastor Andy, I just want you to tell the people a little bit about who you are. Who is Pastor Andy? You know, what do you do? What are your background experiences?
Yeah, man. So I got a background in communications and counseling. So for a while, I was in the Marine Corps. I served in the Marines 8 years, and in addition to that, also served in a pastoral role previously at Forward City Church. And my wife and I, we ended up transplanting to Rock Hill, South Carolina, where she took a job as a supervisor at DSS. And so with that in mind, I do counseling as well as still got a background in PR. Essentially, when I say communications, it's actually PR. So public relations, working with people and getting the message out.
Sounds good. And honestly, that's how Pastor Andy and I crossed paths at church.
Yeah.
He and his beautiful wife, Tiffany, you all may have remember her from the March Live when we talked about breaking the taboo of infertility. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that even on this particular live as we talk about men's health and the different things that affect men's health. And you know, it's kind of cliche, but men have to be honest. It's like pulling teeth. Trying to get you guys to go to the doctor, trying to get you guys to go get checked out. Men are not the easiest ones, man. To try to get the things that you need to take care of, because a lot of times you may not feel it, but you need to go get those things checked out. So I'm gonna jump right into that process. So Tiffany and Andy have shared their story on several different platforms. They've been on news stations, they've been on different ministry platforms, they've even done community forums where they've talked about their challenge with infertility and the importance of foster care and adoption. Andy, would you give us a little bit of backdrop on your story?
Yeah, so our story started out like this, man. I think it's been over like 3 or 4 years. My wife said probably maybe 6, but make a long story short, how it turned out was I got back from my deployment as a Marine, and so when I got back from my deployment, my wife and I were trying to have kids. It wasn't as easy, didn't go as planned, and so I was like, hey, let's try to figure out something else. And my wife was like, hey, maybe you should get checked out or whatever. And so went to the doctor's office, and the doctor kind of gave me some detrimental news, like, hey, you're more than likely not going to be able to have kids. And I was like, whoa, like I was literally bawling. I was broke up or whatever. Called my dad and talked to my dad about the situation, and he kind of encouraged me through the whole process. And so from that point forward, my wife was like, hey, let's try foster care and adoption. I personally didn't want to try it at all because all the horror stories I heard, I was like, nah, these kids got to have my DNA. They got to have my blood. Like, I want them to be a man for sure.
Right.
And so we ended up trying it. I saw how much it was tearing my wife up to not be able to love and nurture because that's part of who she is and how she's been made. And so with all that in mind, we ended up adopting 2 kids, our first kids, and so they're 10 and 3. And so they have been absolutely a blessing in our home. Like, it has been, every day has been just, crazy. You're learning something, you're going along, trying to build them up, teach them new things, and kind of trying to break some previous molds and ideas that they may have learned before. And so it's been absolutely crazy. So in addition to that, recently, within the last 8 months, we also got 2 more kids. So so we got a total of 4 kids. And my wife is running the whole show. I just stand back and take orders.
She's built for it, man.
Yeah,
man. She's a nurturer. I mean, it's just, she's a phenomenal woman. I mean, she loves children. Her work, she works, with DSS. And so she see, that the lives, on a regular basis of what these children actually need. And for you guys to step up and decide, like, we're not going to focus on our issue right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you know their story, you guys are still believing for your own natural children because, hey, what do the doctors really know all the time? You know what I'm saying? We're believers. I mean, it's good to be aware, and that's the thing, with men, as he said, he's going through life thinking he's good. You know what I'm saying? And then until, he gets married, they're trying, and then it's like, wait, whoa, we got a little stumbling block.
Right. So, so the whole thing was that when we found out, I was like, oh, shoot, like, what in the world is about to happen? Like, is my wife going to be okay? Like, how does our marriage and relationship look? And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought I was good. But I think as a man, you always think, or even just not a man, just people in general, you always think you're good until someone gives you information that you necessarily understand, but you don't always want to believe because obviously our faith is stronger. So with that in mind, we still are using our love and our selflessness to care for other kids, to kind of fill the gaps where other children may need the help at the end of the day. And it's been absolutely amazing.
I believe it. I've witnessed you guys. I've been in their lives for quite some time, and I've witnessed how they love these children like they birthed them themselves. I mean, it's incredible to see and encouraging. And I want to share. I want you to kind of dig into the importance of that as we talk about foster care. And you guys have been a strong advocate for the foster care system. Yeah, so through our nonprofit called Hope Lives, we actually help foster parents, and we help adoptive parents as well. And so that's how we ended up even starting that nonprofit. We actually had an issue, obviously you just heard about it. And so through our nonprofit, we was like, man, we really got to help some other families out because obviously infertility is breaking families up, it's breaking marriages up, and in addition to that, not just that, but even other issues of breaking families apart. And so even outside of infertility, we want to help keep families together. So with foster care and adoption specifically, we actually help families who are looking to adopt kids or get in the process of even fostering kids because they just may be a little afraid about it and not really understanding the system. Like me and my wife, we didn't, even though she worked with them, she had some idea, but it wasn't like we had everything mapped out and we knew what to do. Like we was just literally, hey Lord, like work it out. We're going to take it one step at a time and whatever your will be, we'll do that. And so we went through the court situations, we went through the paperwork, and we kind of just walked each step out and kind of went along with it as courts would say so, or as social workers would say so, even as the Lord says so. And so with that in mind, through our Hope Lives organization, we essentially kind of walk people through the process, kind of handhold them and help them kind of learn what does adoption look like, what does foster care look like. Because there's a lot of horror stories about what children do in homes and what they can do to you and, all the ifs, ands, and whats and shoulda, coulda, nots, or whatever the case may be. And so I think when you don't listen necessarily to what people say and kind of deter you from actually being an impact, you can really change people's lives and change just the full trajectory of their even thought process. I'll give you an example. Our baby girl, when we first got her, she was telling us about some rundown place she had stayed in, some rundown hotel we had drove by. She was like, yeah, that's where I met a lot of my friends at. Me and my wife, I was driving, I was trying not to look at my wife so the child wouldn't understand, that's crazy. Right.
And so now she's saying, when she grew up, she want to drive a Lambo. Because she's just that smart and she makes great grades. And I'm like, where did you learn about a Lambo or a Tesla or any of that stuff? Come on, And
that's
so
funny.
It's and the one time she was like, yeah, Walmart is cheap. I was like, baby girl, we shop at Walmart. You just so bougie. But obviously that's the shift in the mind, right? It's change of environment, change of perspective, change of ideas. And so when children see that and they get an understanding, it's wow, the doors and windows are open.
That's phenomenal. And of course, as an educator, I definitely connect with that because we serve children in our school districts, whether you're on the college level or whether you're on, K-12, we serve students sometimes that we don't know who have gone through foster care or who maybe, have served in some or lived, I should say, in some very, interesting situations. And to be able to be in a position like the McIntyres are to say, hey, again, we're not worried about so much what we have going on, but what we have to give, we want to make sure that another child, who does not have this access is able to live a life that's comfortable and that's feasible so that they can grow up and be a productive citizen. This is actually a perfect segue into a situation that I was made privy of, I think yesterday afternoon. A girlfriend of mine was reading an article and it talked about, I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with DACA and, the Trump administration and having these children, that are displaced from, being from their parents being deported and they're in these like concentration camps, basically. Yeah. And so the other day, a news report said that they took away their recreation time, their ability to learn English, so they're not being educated and different things. And so she was sharing her outrage. And then, we had a couple comments come in. But can you talk about, even the importance of looking at situations like that and thinking in the mindset of foster care and adoption when we're dealing with situations like that in the United States?
Yeah, I think, so here's the dynamics is that when dealing with foster care and adoption, so you have different dynamics, right? So as a foster parent, what you're essentially saying is that you want to step in and help out in the sense that a parent can't necessarily step up and handle their responsibilities. And they may be able to, but just not right now. And so obviously you're stepping in and say, hey, I'm going to be selfless to help these children out in this situation. Now that in essence is totally different from someone who wants to adopt the child from Uganda or wherever the case may be. They're literally saying, hey, we want to adopt kids because we want to impact a different country and impact these children's lives in totally a different scenario and situation. Now dealing with DACA and the Trump administration and these immigrant situations that they're dealing with, no one can even understand what they're dealing with as an immigrant trying to come from one country to another, unless you've been in that situation before. But as an immigrant trying to cross borders and just try to provide something better for yourself, that's totally a different dynamic. But what we can understand as a person of humanity and just what we as humans would want to do is we really want someone to have something better, right? And we want them to live a great life, obviously do it the right way. But in essence, you don't have to demoralize or demean or put someone in a camp to say, hey, in order for you to do X, Y, Z, get this done, right? And I think even the alternative to that is rather than us locking people in concentration camps, we could have easily sent some attorneys down there to kind of, make this process go a little bit quicker. Not saying that it would have made it months quicker, but at least, maybe 1 year quicker, because I know it takes a little time for processes and paperwork and systems to actually act out. But quickly, is better than nothing at all, rather than locking them down. I think I seen on social media the other day, I don't know how accurate it was, but they actually had like 90 people stuck in one room.
My goodness.
Yeah, literally like stacked on top of each other. It was appalling, like some of the stuff you had seen, like how much they had stuck so many people in one room because they really did not have the capacity to intake, quote unquote, the amount of people that they were trying to process. And I think some of that can be avoided just by having better systems in place.
I agree with that. You said something very key, having lawyers and different people in place, not only just to make it go faster, but even make it more humane. Because they're able to, those lawyers will be able to represent the human rights, that these people deserve. Because at the end of the day, citizen or not, human rights are, inclusive to all humans, regardless of where they're from. So I thought about that being a perfect conversation to have, because we're talking about adoption and foster care. And these are, great ways in which we as a society, instead of just looking at articles on Facebook or looking at different places, but these are things that we can actually do to provide, spaces for these type of, children and situations. So looking into that. And I want you to talk about something else that I'm not privy of, because I'm not a foster parent and I haven't looked into it yet. But talk about those who may be afraid of the cost. Some people feel like, well, I don't make enough money, or I already have kids, but I am interested in foster care and adoption. Can you talk about some of those?
So financially, anytime you decide to adopt or go into the foster care system, you always have to kind of have a financial plan, like a financial breakdown. Even if your budget is, I make $1,000 a month and I already itemize these kinds of funds just for myself alone, there's always going to be assistance and grants and programs out there to help you take care of someone, because someone always wants you to step up and help out in a time of need, specifically with children, right? Because they don't have a say so. Like, they didn't want to be in this situation regardless. They just know that they were here and they just know that they need someone to take care of them, essentially. So there's always going to be assistance and programs set in place for you to be able to help the children and take care of them, not necessarily always think about what don't I have. And I'll give you an example. When my wife said it, I was like, shoot, like, bills is high now.
Right. And you want to add children. Like immediately.
Exactly. So, like any man, I started thinking about my pockets. We started going over the budget and started, crunching numbers. But then once we started looking at assistance and programs that were available, because we were helping out and saying we were going to, submit our home, our lives and everything to help these kids out, it kind of made things balance out. And I think that's just a fear. What you have a tendency to fear what you don't understand.
Right. Absolutely.
So if you don't understand something, you automatically go into singe mode and like, no, I can't do that. But anybody who's ever made an impact in any situation, any culture, any life, any person has had to get over the fear in order to make something happen.
I love it. I love that. And like, if I don't take anything else, and if you guys don't take anything else from the conversation, especially regarding foster care and adoption and just helping people in general, it's getting over the fear. Yeah. That's really how we make impact. Like, we can't worry about what goes wrong.
Right.
We have to put more emphasis in what could go right.
Yeah,
and I love that, and I'm glad that you spoke from a male perspective, because men, that's how they think,
Absolutely.
especially, pockets, money, how we're going to afford this. Right. And it brings a great balance, with the nurturer and the idea, like Tiffany's bringing in, hey, we can actually do this. And you're saying, okay, but let's do it logically. Let's look at how we're able to provide. So those of you all that are watching and you're interested in foster care and adoption, and you're interested in finding ways in which to bring in those funds to kind of help assist with, definitely reach out to Tiffany and Andy with their Hope Lives organization. It's a phenomenal organization, again, that not only focuses on foster care and adoption, but focuses on bringing and keeping families together. And so that's the thing that I'm kind of want to segue into. Like, you guys have been married, and then boom, now you got 4 kids in your house in a matter of like 2 years. And so how do you balance like being the husband, father, and then all the other things that you do in the community, man? Like, how do you do that?
You pray, and you have an awesome wife that can balance 50 million things, and then you get somebody to help her out too.
Yes.
That's what it has boiled down to, man. We have literally, my wife juggles a lot, and I juggle a lot. And so what has happened is that we've gotten someone to help us literally kind of, take care of some things at home, whether it be washing clothes or dishes or whatever the case may be. Those are the small things, right? And some people are like, man, I don't even have the finances to do that. That's perfectly fine, right? But that's the reason why God has built us to be surrounded by community. Like, it does not have to be, oh, shoot, I got to go hire a nanny, or I got to go get somebody to help me, wash clothes or whatever. No, like, God has built us to be in community, so it's very vitally important while you're in community, you reach out to those people. Sometimes I think we just hate asking for help because we got so much pride built up. Just as men, like, hey man, like, bruh, like, can you help me with XYZ, boom, 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 or just give me some wisdom on how I should answer this, because my wife just asked me this question that I really don't even want to discuss, right? And so I think the biggest thing when you're trying to manage and balance a lot of those things is, obviously you want to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
In addition to prioritizing, you also want to make sure that you kind of look at what is beneficial for my wife, like what is beneficial for the family. It's not always like, for me, I would say prioritizing, let's get out of debt, and then my wife like prioritizing, let's make sure we take care of the kids. So you want to make sure what's right for you is also what's right for the family as well. So that takes a lot of submission on both people's parts, and I think submission just doesn't go one way, it's both ways. And so I think that's obviously what we understand as being compromised, essentially.
That's so good. We got actually a couple of comments coming in. Of course, your wonderful wife is on here like going bananas. She's going bananas. And then we got Simone saying that's so good. Like the comments that you're making, especially sharing the balance and getting over fear. I think she was coming in on that. My sister-in-law commented. She said, "What about adoption for single or those that are unwed? Are there grants available for them as well?"
Yeah, absolutely. So single and unwed, there's always going to be grants available for you guys. So I think the fears is this, and I'm going to just kind of back it up. So when you apply for your application, whatever it may be, through any organization, they're going to say, hey, do you make X amount of money, or what money do you make? And then you'll start to itemize your budget from there. You'll be like, well, shoot, I'm not, qualified, so I'm just going to exit left, right? And so they're saying, no, that's not the reason why we're asking. We're asking because we want to see what we can make sure you qualify for it a lot of times, because there are other options out there for you. Now, every assistance is not going to always come through the government or come through some federal agency, right? So like me and my wife, like through our organization, we want to help a family who's adopted a child, or help a family who has a kid in foster care. We want to say, hey, we got kids graduating, we want to give a kid a laptop, right? We want to give something away to them. Like, those are the types of situations. So specifically grants, you have the Fatherhood Initiative, you have different organizations and nonprofits who want to like extend a hand to families and say, hey, like, you're single, you're unwed, we do understand that you want to help out. So these are a list of places that you can go to receive assistance. And so a lot of other nonprofit organizations actually have an organization within themselves. Obviously, you can start with the United Way, right? Yeah. Because that's all they do. Like, they're just a big organization that houses a lot of grants, and they say, just dish them out, So you can start there and say, hey, what organizations in my community are helping people specifically to foster care and adoption? and they'll tell you what grants are available for you from there.
That's really good. And Colin, I would encourage you to reach out to Andy and Tiff too with Hope Lives, because they have phenomenal information. And he'll tell you about the website and all that information, everything that you can get to them as it relates to what they actually do with Hope Lives. So definitely reach out to them. He'll definitely share that at the end. I got a question, and I'll be talking to all of those guests who are coming on this month, and I'll be sharing this. This particular, documentary has gone like viral, and you are an African American man, and you've been pivotal in the community here, pivotal in the community where you guys have moved to, still in the state of South Carolina. So I still consider it local. I want to talk about like breaking the cycle of our black and brown boys being labeled, stigmatized, traumatized, ostracized, in the community, and sometimes often demonized by other races. Like, what is your perspective as an African American male, and sharing that, what do you do to help, to probably, because you're raising brown boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
What, 3 of them?
Absolutely. And so here's the thing. So I'm going to back up a little bit. So growing up, I'm an 80s baby, right? So in 87, I grew up, and growing up, my mom used to tell me, she said, hey, when you go to the store, make sure you save your receipts, because in our community, police was locking people up. You could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of like the, Central Park 5, right? And so the problem is this, you had a receipt, so you could prove that, hey, no, I'm innocent, I wasn't there, this is where I was, X, Y, and Z, right? So that's where it was growing up. In addition to that, on top of that, my mom and my dad both grew up as, actually worked in education. And so they saw children from all different backgrounds, and so they already had in their mind, hey, I don't want my kids to be like this, because this is what's being cut down, this is what's being ostracized, this is what's being taken advantage of, right? So now what do? You tell your kids, hey, don't wear a do-rag outside my house, or don't sag, or don't do X, Y, and Z. Now what we're seeing is that you could be dressed up in a doggone suit and tie and still get your, you can get shot, essentially, right? For any unrandom amount of reasons. And thankfully, we got social media to be able to capture a lot of this stuff, right? So the thing is that I don't think it's so much more now in how you dress and, those kinds of things. It's more so now it's like, what's here? Let me think this thing through so that I can make it home safely. And in addition to that, let me think this thing through so I understand what my next step should be in the event I'm in this situation. And so I got a 10-year-old daughter, and so obviously we got to have that conversation with her, and I got 3 young boys, all 3 and below. But at some point I'm gonna have to have this discussion about what does it look like if you're in a situation, or even prior to you get to the situation of you're falsely accused of X, Y, and Z. Or you're just around a group of people and somebody else is accused of something and all of y'all getting it, right? So I think the biggest thing is that we communicate this message of prepare yourselves, know what you're supposed to do, know how you're supposed to do it, and what does this look like moving forward. I saw the documentary, and so my biggest concern with that documentary now is that it's kind of like money is always the answer.
Right.
Like, hey, we wrongfully did you wrong, and so we're going to give you $41 million to suffice for all your years of suffering and pain, but money can't buy back that time, right?
Correct.
And so even in our justice system, I think the problem is that when something goes wrong, let's pay people out because money, heals, and that's not the case.
It's not the case.
And so I think the problem is that we provide money when, in essence, we need a system that actually protects and looks after people and helps them kind of get over the situation. So what ends up happening is they say, hey, here's $41 million. We're going to slide everybody else to the side and say, hey, you get success. You actually get to, move up in the system. Whereas though these gentlemen here, they're still trying to build their lives up. They're trying to really recoup from everything that took place. Where in essence, a lot of times that has happened before and they didn't receive any money.
Right.
And so now it's like, what happens to those people who were wrong, who wrongfully did what they did? There has to be some kind of, consequence or retribution for that, because at the end of the day, the system will continue to put itself in the same situation over and over and over again.
Exactly. And to that point, for those times and those cases that we don't know about, that didn't make media and that didn't make the ability to have a documentary written about.
Absolutely.
Like, we don't want to send the message that money is the answer. Like, just throwing money at people who've lost their lives, for no reason at all. And so having those early conversations, like you talked about, because you do have a young black girl, because they're not immune to it.
Absolutely.
We got cases we can roll out over the last 10 years that proves that black girls are not immune to it, and then of course you're raising young black boys. So
I don't want to misconstrue that the way you dress doesn't matter, right? I think that matters. I mean, I'm saying this because I've had personal experiences where I've been dressed to the nine, and I walk in a store and I still get racially profiled, right? So I'm not saying this out of just some random oblivious notion that doesn't matter. Dressing a certain way does matter. It does, but what we're also seeing is that how you carry yourself matters as well, and what appear matters as well too.
Right.
Because in addition to that, all that matters, like in the grand scheme of things, overall, essentially.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just kind of threw that spiel in there. It wasn't an original part of, but once the documentary really went viral, I watched it in completion, and there were so many different things that you can pull from it, observe, and though there's this negative spill on it, there is a positive outcome. Not the money part. I think that's positive too. But there are just so many other dynamics. It creates dialogue in our homes. It creates dialogue in our schools. And even in churches, even for other cultures and races, it creates a dialogue now, and where we're in a new generation, because that was in the late 80s, 90s when this was happening. But now we're going into 2020. And so our children their framework of thinking is different. So it brings an opportunity for conversation.
And not just conversation, but action. I think that's the thing that where we're at now is that like a lot of people don't want to watch it because they're afraid of the emotion that may come from that, but we're past the point of just emotion, right?
Right. We're past emotion.
Like it's got to be some, action that needs to be taken next after these steps, because essentially what's going to happen is that you're just always going to have this emotion. Those emotions are just going to run rampant in your body. You're just going to next time, you talk to the next white person. That's not what you want to happen, right? You want to be able to process those emotions so you can have a constructive conversation with yourself to say, yes, this is how I can help. This is what needs to happen next at the end of the day, rather than just typing away on social media and feel like you did something.
Right. Absolutely. It's definitely action work. And that's actually where I was going next. Like, putting together, because out of those conversations will birth plans and ideas that would have to be put to action.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited for what you guys are doing with Hope Lives. I've been a part of, it was the first marital conference. I think that's what it was. Seminar. And then, I don't know, I was like, I know it was something.
You got something out of it. Conference, retreat, whatever
it was. And then also you guys got some upcoming things that you're going to be a part of. I saw that you're going to be speakers for the Serenity Support Group that's coming up at the end of this month. I think it was June 23rd.
It is.
Like that 22nd. Yeah. So tell the people like how they can find you and Tiffany both.
Yeah. So you can go online to www.hopelives.cc, and so you'll find all our information there, or email us at hopelivesinfo@gmail.com. And so the biggest thing about, like I said, our organization is we want to keep families together, right? And it's not like you just have to be suffering from infertility or suffering from any specific ideas. Just our biggest thing is keeping families together, because once a family divorce or kids go X, Y, and Z, or they don't feel a certain way, then anything can happen to a family. They get broken up. And so I think that's kind of the core where we are as a people, is that if we can get our families rock solid and hold on to that, then we can kind of branch out from there, because that's what we need to do essentially. That's
amazing work. I mean, y'all check them out seriously. They have a movement. And like you said, it's all encompassing, not just focused on one area of the family or the other, but doing something that, especially African American families, we come from a generation of strong families. No matter the attempts to separate, we still have that longing to be together as families, And so what they offer is, even if you have gone through a divorce, and if you are, raising the children, or they're split parenting, like there's still services that they have that can still bring a sense of togetherness for the children that are involved, and unification for the children that are involved. So we are all about talking about men this month, and the strength and power and the necessity of our men and our families. So thank you so much, Pastor Andy. I'm glad that you came on this show. Thank you guys for watching, for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the love on this information. Share it with people near and far, because Pastor Andy shares some amazing nuggets of how we can come together, either individually, family-wise, or within community, to make our world a better place, because that's what we're called to do.
Love you guys, man.
Love you so much, you guys. Take care. See you soon.